Welcome back, Past Paradise. We're exploring Charles Bronson's extraordinary life today. Bronson made a name for himself in Hollywood with roles in The Magnificent Seven and Death Wish. We'll learn about his later years and why he died in his 80s as we examine his career's ups and downs. We'll explore the extraordinary life of a man who became a symbol of strength and resilience in the face of adversity. Charles Bronson, a legend whose legacy inspires fans worldwide, is honored from his humble beginnings to his rise as one of the greatest actors of his time. Early family life. The actor Charles Bronson wasn't born with Charles Bronson as his name. Unlike many other Hollywood celebrities, particularly during that period, Charles Dennis Buczynski was Bronson's birth name in 1921. Raised as a Roman Catholic, Bronson's parents were immigrants from the Eastern European nation of Lithuania. Furthermore, Bronson wasn't the couple's only kid. Bronson's upbringing must have been challenging as the 11th child out of 15. When Bronson's father arrived in America, his name, Walteris P. Buczynskis, was anglicized to Walter Buczynski. From poor beginnings. Considering the period and size of his family, Bronson was raised in a low-income family. After his father died, Bronson claims the actor was forced to work in the coal mines as a child. When he was younger, Bronson stated that he and his brothers worked in the coal mines for $1 a week. Despite all the hardship, Bronson became the first person in his family to earn a high school diploma. Fortunately, the actor was able to rise above his difficult upbringing and establish a successful career in the end. Smoker. Despite the low social status of his family, Bronson did appear to have acquired one costly habit early in life. It's said that Bronson began smoking cigarettes at the age of 9. Before that, it was noted that Bronson cherished chewing tobacco and was unable to give it up. Eventually, he'd start using a pipe to smoke tobacco. Regretfully, Bronson's smoking habit proved to be fatal in the end. Although the exact cause of his death is unknown, his death certificate lists multiple causes of death, including metastatic lung cancer and respiratory failure, both of which would have resulted from his lifetime of smoking. Early fashion. When Bronson was a youngster, his family took many steps to reduce spending and get by during the worst financial times for most Americans. Bronson claims he would frequently go to school wearing his sister's dresses to save money on clothes. The Bronson kids were often made to shave their heads to remove head lice. Since 15 kids were living in the home where Bronson resided, any head lice would have spread to every child. After his early childhood, Bronson eventually grew his hair and became a successful actor. Polyglots. Because his parents were immigrants, Bronson didn't speak English as his first language. Though Bronson grew up in a rural Pennsylvania town, he spoke Lithuanian with his family at home. Growing up, Bronson would pick up Greek and Russian in addition to English, becoming a polyglot. Bronson's English was heavily accented growing up because his family was immigrants. When Bronson first arrived in America, many people thought he was an immigrant. Eventually, Bronson managed to get rid of his accent and speak with an American one, which came through in many of his films. Serving in the armed forces. At 22, Bronson enlisted in the United States Air Force in 1943 and served with the 61st Bombardment Squadron in Guam and Japan during World War II. When Bronson was injured in combat while serving, the military awarded him a Purple Heart. Speaking highly of his military service, Bronson claimed numerous advantages to his years of duty. According to Bronson, he received good food, clothes, and opportunities to practice his English in the Army. Bronson was also able to quit his job in the coal mines due to his enlistment. Odd jobs. Bronson appeared to be caught between beginning a new life in Philadelphia and returning to his former life as a coal miner in rural Pennsylvania after leaving the armed forces. Bronson took on several odd jobs then, but could still not look for a permanent position. Before living in Los Angeles, Bronson would also reside in Atlantic City in New York. Bronson began taking acting classes and joined a neighborhood theater group during this period. Actors in Atlantic City reportedly asked Bronson to paint theater seats, which is how he got into acting. Famous roommates. Bronson shared an apartment in New York City with a fellow aspiring actor who would become well-known in the entertainment industry. Bronson shared a home in the late 1940s with actor Jack Klugman, who was attempting to establish himself in New York City. By career's end, Klugman would have several well-known credits. Klugman began his acting career on stage and later played prominent roles in television and movies. In addition to appearing in Cry Terror and the original 12 Angry Men film, Klugman also portrayed Walter Matthau as Felix Unger in The Odd Couple. Additionally, Klugman portrayed Quincy M.E. in the eponymous television series. First wife. Bronson wed Harriet Tendler, his first wife, in 1949. Tendler was 8 years younger than her future husband when they first met in 1947 while attending an acting school in Philadelphia. Tendler was 18 years old at the time of their meeting. Tendler's father finally approved Bronson, and the two were eventually married. The couple was highly impoverished despite their great happiness together. Tendler claimed that Bronson had very little money in his pocket when they first started dating. Tony was the son that Bronson and Tendler had together, and Suzanne was the daughter. The divorce occurred in 1965, before Bronson's zenith in terms of public recognition. Changing their name. America was on the cusp of a multi-decade war with the Soviet Union in the 1950s. Around that time, a political organization headed by Senator Joe McCarthy started trying to out any Americans who supported communism or the Soviet Union. As a result, hearings and trials were set up that specifically targeted people with Eastern European ancestry and left-wing political views. The day's political climate caused Bronson to change his family name from Buczynski, which sounded very Eastern European, to Bronson, which sounded more American. It's unclear how much Bronson's name change contributed to his career advancement as an actor, but it didn't hurt, especially when other Hollywood celebrities were persecuted. Another Charles Bronson? A famous person and another famous person sharing the same name is a rare occurrence. In this instance, Charles Bronson refers to the notorious British prisoner and the well-known actor. Due to his violent behavior and mental illness, Charles Bronson, the criminal, who's referred to as the most violent prisoner in Britain, spent 44 years in both prison and mental hospitals. In 1987, while boxing bare knuckle in London, he legally changed his name to Charles Bronson. Bronson was even placed in seclusion for 40 days at a time. The man who has penned books and is now the subject of a movie was first jailed for armed robbery, but quickly established a reputation as a violent prisoner. He even held hostages while attacking other prisoners and guards. He began bare-knuckle boxing after his first stint of imprisonment ended, and he later went back to prison after plotting another heist. Bronson made the following statement about his personality. "I'm a nice guy, but sometimes I lose all my senses and become nasty. That doesn't make me evil, just confused." First role. Although Charles Bronson's acting career didn't start well, he'd become a well-known figure. In 1951, Bronson made his screen debut in the movie You're in the Navy Now. The film, which starred Jane Greer and Gary Cooper, was about the adventures on patrol craft 1168. The only score Bronson received was for his ability to burp on cue. Wachlewski, a sailor from the engine room who was going to represent the ship in a boxing match, was portrayed by Bronson. Before the fight, Bronson's character breaks his ribs. Tony Barbeau, an ensign, takes his place. Caught in the crossfires. Bronson starred with Gary Cooper once more in the western Vera Cruz in 1954. According to Vera Cruz, Cooper plays a former Confederate soldier who becomes a hired gun in Mexico. Ben Train, portrayed by Cooper, eventually teams up with Joe Aaron, a gunslinger portrayed by Burt Lancaster. Charles Bronson's character, Pittsburgh, is a member of Aaron's group of ruthless individuals. Bronson and another actor, Ernest Borgnine, went into a nearby town one day while filming. The two left, still dressed in costumes, refusing to change into their everyday attire. Consequently, Mexican police confronted the two actors and took them into custody until they could provide identification. Breakout roles. Bronson would rise to prominence in Hollywood in the late 1950s, despite appearing in several low-budget movies and TV series. Regretfully, he had trouble making the transition to a genuine household name. Bronson landed a supporting cast role in The Magnificent Seven in 1960. Even though he gained a strong reputation, Bronson's breakthrough performance as a leading man wasn't until 1974. In Death Wish, Bronson portrays Paul Kersey as the main character. Despite a $3.7 million budget, the film grossed over $20 million at the box office and became the most successful American film of Bronson's career. Death Wish was released in America 14 years after Bronson's appearance in The Magnificent Seven at the age of 53. Acting friends. Even though he was perceived as shy, Bronson made some fantastic friends during his acting career. In New York City, Bronson cohabitated with Jack Klugman before either man's breakthrough in the acting industry. Klugman wasn't Bronson's only well-known acting buddy, though. While collaborating with the renowned Steve McQueen on the 1959 picture Never So Few, Bronson also became friends with him. The Magnificent Seven the following year marked Bronson and McQueen's second acting collaboration, and The Great Escape in 1963 marked their third. Legend has it that McQueen was the one who first proposed the Bronson name before he altered it. Legend says that while driving around with his friend, McQueen noticed a street called Bronson and suggested it to his friend. On-screen similarities. As Danny Tunnel King Valinsky, Bronson portrayed a character in the iconic film The Great Escape. The character, played by Bronson, is imprisoned in Stalag 17, a German POW camp. Throughout the film, it becomes clear that Bronson and Valinsky have much in common. During World War II, Bronson and Valinsky both fought in the U.S. Air Force in East Asia, while Valinsky, a Polish refugee, joined the English Army to fight the Nazis. As the camp's resident tunnel expert, Valinsky has more experience with tunnels than Bronson, who worked in coal mines as a child. Paradoxically, Bronson and Valinsky experienced claustrophobia. Considering how many of the tunnels used for filming were small spaces, it would be a very cozy experience. Going global. Even though he was born and reared in America, Bronson's career began in Europe. In contrast to the U.S., Bronson was regarded as a massive success in France and Italy. Charles Bronson was cast in several European-produced movies in the late 1960s. Alongside Alain Delon, Bronson portrayed the lead role in the French film Adieu l'ami. After that, Bronson was chosen to play the lead antagonist opposite Henry Fonda in Once Upon a Time in the West. Italian director Sergio Leone dubbed Bronson Il Brutto and described him as the best actor he'd ever worked with. Local nothing. Before becoming well-known, Bronson played supporting roles and starred in several low-budget movies for a long time. While Bronson enjoyed success in Europe during the 1960s, his films tended to be box office busts in the United States. In the early 1970s, Bronson returned to the U.S. and was met with positive box office results. Charlie Chaplin and other actors founded United Artists, a major production company Bronson signed in 1972. With $1 million going to each movie, Bronson rose to become the world's biggest box office star in 1973. Predicting the future. 16 years after they were married and 18 years after they began dating, Charles Bronson and Harriet Tendler divorced in 1965. From 1965 to 1968, after meeting English actress Jill Ireland in 1962, Bronson was prepared to move on even before their divorce. Ireland married David McCallum then, but Bronson was still wed to Tendler. While working together on The Great Escape, McCallum and Bronson supposedly had an incident where Bronson revealed to his Scottish co-star that he was marrying McCallum's wife. In 1968, a year after Ireland's divorce was finalized, and 3 years after Bronson and Tendler's divorce, the two got married. Until Ireland passed away in 1990 from breast cancer, the two stayed together. Together, the couple gave 2 children, Katrina, who was adopted, and Zulika. Co-stars in film and television. Ireland and Bronson were frequently spotted together, even when they weren't on screen. Bronson was at the height of his popularity during their relationship, and they collaborated on 15 films. Ireland and Bronson would be co-stars in several movies, including The Valachi Papers, Via Rides, Breakheart Pass, and The Mechanic. Ireland was also chosen to play Jerry Nichols, Bronson's romantic interest in Death Wish 2. The final time Ireland and Bronson worked together was in 1987, 5 years after Death Wish 2, after Ireland's breast cancer surgery and treatment. Trouble on the set. Lee Marvin was one of the many actors Bronson often cast with. In Bronson's feature film debut, You're in the Navy Now, Lee Marvin and Bronson collaborated for the first time. Throughout their careers, the two also collaborated on multiple projects. The two starred in leading roles in films such as Death Hunt, Yukon, The Meanest Men in the West, and The Dirty Dozen. Given how much Bronson reportedly detested working with Marvin and had an extraordinarily trying experience during the filming of one of their earliest projects together, The Dirty Dozen, it's surprising that the two actors collaborated so frequently. According to reports, Bronson was furious with Marvin for often leaving the set to get wasted while filming. In addition, Bronson took issue with the studio's request that he chop his hair for the part, which he only complied with after the studio threatened to file a lawsuit against him. Turned down roles. For a variety of reasons, many celebrities have declined roles in projects that went on to become massive hits. Charles Bronson is undoubtedly not an exception to this rule. Having refused several box office winning projects that would have made their leading actors household names, director Sergio Leone offered Bronson the lead role in A Fistful of Dollars, but he turned it down because he thought the script was terrible. Clint Eastwood was cast for the role, and the film grossed over $14 million at the box office. In the third installment of the Man with No Name trilogy, Leone attempted to offer Bronson multiple roles in addition to the lead role in the sequel. Although Bronson was eager to accept the provided role in the third movie, he was compelled to turn it down since he was already committed to filming The Dirty Dozen. He turned down the role in the sequel because he detested the script once more. Almost Superman. Bronson was also the frontrunner for the first big-budget live adaptation of the comic book Man of Steel, where he played Superman. Alongside actors like Sylvester Stallone, Bruce Jenner, and Chris Christopherson, Bronson had an audition for the role. Ultimately, Bronson's application for the role was turned down because the casting team thought he was too earthy for the Kryptonian role. Considering that Bronson was 3 years older than Marlon Brando, who played Superman's father Jor-El in the film, and 57 years old when the film was released, it's pretty amazing that he even went through the audition process for the role. Christopher Reeve, a 26-year-old actor, portrayed Superman. Vigilantism. Actor Bronson's portrayal of architect-turned-vigilante Paul Kersey was one of his most well-liked roles. In the movie, Bronson's character loses it when his wife is killed, and intruders abuse his daughter. Author Brian Garfield's book served as the inspiration for the movie. Bronson had turned down violent films before, but took the role in this one. While some critics think the movie glorifies vigilantism, Bronson analyzed the film's message from a different angle. Bronson claims that the film's lesson demonstrates how vigilante justice renders people blind worldwide. Second Fiddle. Charles Bronson portrayed a bare-knuckle boxer in the 1975 motion picture Hard Times. James Coburn, who plays Spencer West, the character who serves as Bronson's manager in the movie, compared with Bronson. Coburn and Bronson had previously collaborated on The Great Escape and The Magnificent Seven. Hard Times did not feature Bronson in a supporting role, unlike the two films in which he appeared. Bronson played the lead role in the movie, while Coburn was the supporting cast member. Co-star created problems on the set because Coburn didn't think Bronson was a well-known enough star to lead the project in front of him. Defending her honor. On the Hard Times set, Coburn wasn't the only actor who had a problem with a co-star. In addition, Bronson blasted Walter Hill, the director, for allegedly criticizing Jill Ireland's performance. Ireland's husband at the time, Bronson, took offense at the criticism. Bronson harbored resentment toward Hill for the rest of the movie and his entire life for belittling Ireland. Hill never collaborated with Bronson again during the rest of his career. Ireland survived for an additional 15 years before dying of breast cancer. Hidden disease. Throughout his career, Bronson was perceived by many as conceited and contemptuous. He disliked shaking hands with fans and coworkers. Historians speculate that he had a secret motive for shunned handshakes that he never disclosed. Some historians claim that Bronson struggled with obsessive-compulsive disorder throughout his life. Throughout his career, Bronson had a phobia of germs and was scared of getting sick from an infection. Sadly, Bronson was never tested for it, and since he died in 2003, it's probably still a mystery. Anger issues. Bronson's infamous temper could quickly get out of control throughout his life. He had multiple outbursts, including one during the Dirty Dozen set. His co-stars, Jim Brown and Donald Sutherland, played practical jokes on him. When Bronson went to see the movie, he even left the premiere. One of his co-stars called Bronson a time bomb. John Huston once compared working with Bronson to handling a grenade with the pin removed. In 1975, Huston and Bronson collaborated on the film Stars. As it happens, Huston's evaluation wasn't all that incorrect. During the production, Bronson lost all composure with the crew while working on the film. Insulting the crew. As mentioned earlier, Bronson had a notoriously bad temper. In addition to establishing a reputation for being nearly as vicious as his characters, Bronson also exuded a haughty aura that led many to assume that anger was simmering beneath the surface. As mentioned earlier, one of Bronson's former castmates compared him to a grenade without a pin. On the set of Mr. Majestic in 1974, the grenade, so to speak, did manage to go off. Bronson became irate with the crew during the movie's filming after delays, saying that the delays would not have occurred if a European crew or a European first assistant had been used for the film. Bronson chastised the crew. Almost all the crew considered quitting in protest as a kind of retaliation, but Richard Fleischer, the director, talked them out of it. Fears. According to accounts of his life, Bronson experienced several fears. Bronson experienced claustrophobia due to his childhood mine labor, which would have complicated his role as a tunnel digger in The Great Escape. In addition, Bronson was supposedly a well-known germaphobe and may have had OCD at some point in his life. Those weren't the only worries Bronson had. A fear of fire was one of Bronson's other fears. Because of this, Bronson started to travel with extra caution, staying in hotels with up to 2 floors. If the family was on the 2nd floor at most, Bronson thought they could escape to safety if a fire broke out at the hotel. Hollywood star. In contrast to numerous Hollywood celebrities, Bronson could not win many awards during his career. After splitting the world film favorite Henrietta Award with Sean Connery, Bronson would win it. For his performance as Soldier Conlon in the CBS General Electric Theater series, Bronson received an Emmy nomination in 1961. Bronson's place on the Hollywood Walk of Fame is one honor he could obtain for himself. The Boulevard's Bronson plaque was erected in December 1980. Bronson and his spouse, Jill Ireland, were present at the event. At 6901 Hollywood Boulevard, Bronson's star is situated next to those of The Doors, Greta Garbo, William Shatner, John Travolta, and Joan Collins. Generous fan. Bronson didn't know of Audrey Nauer's existence during her lifetime, but Nauer left the actor a parting gift after her death. Nauer bequeathed the author her entire life's worth in a hurriedly drafted will. The will reads as a powerful critique of the deceased woman's mother, to whom she left no bequest at all when she passed away. Instead, Nauer left everything to her favorite movie star, Bronson. Additionally, Bronson's will specified that the Louisville Free Public Library would receive any portion of his estate he didn't want. Her family, however, disputed the original will, arguing that Nauer was not competent to make such a decision. Final marriage. Jill Ireland, Bronson's second wife, lost her battle with breast cancer in 1990. 8 years following her passing, Bronson and Kim Weeks for the third and last time. Dove Audio had previously employed Weeks, and Weeks assisted in producing an audiobook version of Jill Ireland's memoirs, which is how the two got together. Weeks was 39 years younger than the aging actor when they got married. Weeks was 38 years old, and Bronson was 77 when they married. Up to his 81st birthday in 2003, Bronson and the couple stayed wed. Children. Bronson raised several children, many of whom were not his biological offspring. Along with an adopted daughter, Bronson had 3 stepchildren from Jill Ireland's previous marriage, in addition to the 2 biological children he had with his first wife. The couple adopted Katrina Holden Bronson, who became Bronson and Ireland's second child. Later, Katrina would move into writing, directing, and featuring in her father's films, such as Death Wish 4, The Crackdown. Death. Bronson's health gradually declined as he grew older. After outliving his second wife, Jill Ireland, Bronson had to retire from acting in 1998 due to surgery. Following the procedure, Bronson's health kept failing the ailing actor. Before dying, the actor passed away in August 2003 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. While others think Bronson's cause of death were Alzheimer's and pneumonia, lung cancer would be the primary cause of death, and respiratory failure would be the official cause of death. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon